Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live Free Now Show. John Bush here, coming at you. We want to welcome you to the program. We got a great show lined up. We are going to be joined by Mike Cobb of ECI Development. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, Mike Cobb of ECI Development. We're going to pick his brain about success philosophy. We're going to learn a little bit about his life, what makes him tick, and also some opportunities that he has for folks that are looking to leave a legacy of liberty and prosperity. We're going to talk about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. In fact, we're going to be doing a segment called CBDC Watch, where I'll break down the latest news on the CBDC front. And of course, we're going to be bringing you everything that aligns with freedom, living the good life, and being the best version of yourself. So we're so glad that you are going to be joining us. Catherine Martin giving me a hard time. It is going to be a great program today, so stick with us. All right. We recently did the CBDC opt-out challenge over at Live Free Academy. If you're new to the show, Live Free Now Show, I do want to encourage you guys to hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the show on YouTube. Also, the Live Free Now Show, we have a podcast. It's the audio version of the program. So shout out to you listeners that are listening in. Definitely check us out. But the company that produces the show and a lot of the work that we do helping people to exit the beast system and live a life of freedom, a lot of it is through our company, Live Free Academy. And Live Free Academy recently hosted the CBDC Opt-Out Challenge, which was a 3-day live event where the viewers were taught my 4C strategy for opting out of CBDCs, the 4C strategy for opting out of CBDCs. We're going to be doing that event. We're going to try to do it again, maybe in early June. It was such a powerful event, and I just want to keep rolling that info back. Really hard-hitting information, all about strategies that we can employ, rooted in the exit and build strategy, of course. But the central bank digital currencies are always a topic for discussion, and people are rightfully concerned with central bank digital currencies. But as we've communicated on the program, Live Free Now, and as we most definitely drove home during the challenge, in fact, we were joined by Aaron Day of the Daylight Freedom Foundation. He's really leading the charge when it comes to pushing back on CBDCs. He was sharing, of course, this idea that we're worried about CBDCs. CBDCs are coming. CBDCs are coming. Oh, no. But in all reality, central bank digital currencies are in large part already here. Check it out. What are some qualities of CBDCs? Well, they're digital money, ones and zeros, transferred on computers. Most of the money that people use today is digital as well. Everything except for cash, in fact, that people are buying and selling stuff with is digital. Even when the Federal Reserve creates new money out of thin air, debt money, of course, which is pretty wild to wrap your head around, that's still ones and zeros. And as Aaron Day often points out in his talks, his discussions, his podcast, the United States government, the Department of Treasury, and the Federal Reserve Bank, they use an Oracle database. Oracle's this massive tech company that's partnered with OpenAI and other tech companies for this Stargate AI initiative that Trump is helping to spearhead. $500 billion worth of investment to really accelerate the computing power of artificial intelligence. Some would say to keep up and compete with China. Others would say to create the foundation and groundwork for the technocracy. Okay, so it's digital. That's already happening. Money gets created. It's entries in an Oracle database. People are sending and receiving money via the checking account. That's entries being updated on a digital ledger. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, all digital. But of course, digital doesn't necessarily mean bad. It makes things easier to control, but at the same time, it also makes things easier to not control and to be free and sovereign in the case of decentralized cryptocurrencies, especially privacy coins like Monero. Some this cool concept that sometimes things can be an asset or a liability, depending on how you look at them. Something being digital can be a liability in the sense of a centralized government-controlled digital currency, money now, as is for the most part, or it can be an asset in the sense of a decentralized platform that's uncensorable and private. Okay, what other qualities are we worried about when it comes to CBDCs? We are worried about those currencies being surveillable, right? CBDCs are going to be able to track and trace everything we're doing. Well, I got news for you, folks. Unless you're paying with cash, unless you're using a private cryptocurrency like Monero, those transactions are tracked and traced too. Venmo, Cash App, checking account, whatever. The IRS has a back door willy-nilly into your bank account, whether you like it or not. And that's not a permission you can revoke. That's something we're concerned about with CBDCs. That's already here. Additionally, we're concerned with CBDCs being programmable. Now, this is one piece that is not as advanced as the others that are just blanket, like pretty much everything we're worried about is already here. There are some programmable aspects of money if you're using entitlement programs like a SNAP benefits card. RFK Jr., I should say, is talking about we shouldn't have soda. People shouldn't be able to buy soda. It's this false little debate that everyone was stewed into. I don't want to sound hypocritical, but I always get a kick because I do this myself sometimes too, especially being a commentator. But I always get a kick out of whole movements and groups of people, even red-pilled, awake people. It's just so easy to see how they and their attention is controlled by whatever the media or even the alternative media or the mainstream alternative media is talking about, right? So it's like, this is what the news says, the talking heads say, and then people in our freedom movement arrogantly are like, the masses are brainwashed and programmed by the media. But then meanwhile, what's common and popular on Twitter right now? Let's all debate and talk about that and give that our attention. That was what happened recently with this RFK thing. Ban soda for SNAP benefits. No, some people are even getting paid by it. Either way, that would be an example of a digital money being used with this card and this digital account, not being able to buy certain goods and services. And those businesses, grocery stores, gas stations, Dollar General that accept those SNAP cards have it programmed in their system not to allow you to do that. But the programming is something that still needs to advance. Aaron Day often points out this MasterCard, this Doconomy MasterCard that you can voluntarily opt into. But of course, the plan is to force this upon people. And this voluntary program, a pilot program, allows you to go ahead and have the card shut off if you exceed a certain amount of carbon output. If the goods and services you purchase, they're tracked, how much carbon they emit into the environment. If your purchases on that card exceed a certain amount, then the card gets shut off. And it's some Debbie do-good or willy-nilly feel good about ourselves nonsense. Pretty ridiculous. That's the type of programmable money that isn't fully implemented mandatory style, but that's coming. And then, of course, the big fear, I would say the biggest fear, two parts, one part minor, one part major. An element of CBDCs we're worried about that in large part is already here. For those of you just joining us, we're talking about how CBDCs, the big worries, digital, surveillable, programmable, censorable, those are already basically part of the monetary system, the status quo monetary system. Transactions can be censored. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Samsung Pay, Stripe, Square, you name it. They can choose to not allow a transaction to go through. That's the minor piece of the censorable. And then the big piece, which is in the book of Revelation, 2,000 plus years old, pretty hardcore. That piece is that you'll be potentially shut out of the economy altogether. That's the big worry too. And, in all reality, during our CBDC opt-out challenge, I love having an extended amount of time to work with our clients and community. 3 days. I tell you what, it was epic. It really took it out of me, though, because I was grinding it out for about 2 to 3 weeks straight, getting everything in place. And then not only building out the funnels and the systems and the follow-ups and the marketing and getting my team on board and ready to handle all this incoming activity, but delivering 3 days. And it was a 10 to 5 o'clock, 10 to 5, 10 to 6:30 on one of the days. Thankfully, the last day ended at 3:30, but still. Either way, it was great to communicate with the audience because we had some open Q&A sessions, and they're like, you keep saying the CBDCs are already here, so what's the big worry with the CBDCs? And if it's already here, why should we be so urgent, right? And what I pointed out was that the big problem isn't CBDCs. per se, CBDCs alone, because as I'm communicating to you right now, we basically already have CBDCs. Status quo. That should already be alarming, the fact that you can be censored. I've been debanked. I've had my PayPal, 2 PayPal accounts, mine, my wife's. Sorry, honey. Cash App, Square, Stripe for one business. And then I got debanked from Frost, all for selling Kratom. I usually have some to reference, but I haven't been taking Kratom lately. I've been pulling back so I can feel the raw emotions flowing through my body. You could be debanked. I've been debanked. The big problem isn't central bank digital currencies on the surface alone, just CBDCs. The big problem is what a fully implemented, fully imposed, mandatory CBDC system will enable the predator class to do to you. That's the problem, my friends. They want to use central bank digital currency, and in large part, they're already using money and especially the income tax system in the US and other countries, similar systems, to socially engineer the public. That's the big mission here. What can we do to manipulate the public into being better slaves? What can we do to deter them from protesting? What can we do to get them to adopt the correct habits? What can we do ultimately to get them to be more conscious and mindful and force them to not exceed a certain amount of carbon output? That's the whole name of the game. New World Order has been pushing this environmentalism nonsense even before Agenda 21, Club of Rome, limits on consumption. It's just all been swept into this carbon thing, which is like carbon is life. It's this weird death cult, really. So CBDCs in large part are already here, but where things are going and the mandatory aspect is, of course, a big concern. And we broke this all down during the CBDC opt-out challenge. And now I want to share with you a couple of bits of news. Again, thank you for joining us. If you're just tuned in, this is the Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and hit that button, subscribe. If you're logged into your YouTube platform, then you'll get up to date all the videos that we're announcing. You can also hit the bell notification, the bell icon, so you can be notified whenever we go live. And then ultimately, I do want to invite you as well. I just got pricked by something. Sorry. I do want to invite you guys as well to subscribe to the podcast. We're trying to grow the podcast, the audio feed. livefreenow.show is the website there, livefreenow.show. And you can click on Spotify, Apple, Google, Stitcher, and subscribe. That way you'll hear whenever we drop the new shows. Got some good stuff that we've done recently. Interviewed a lot of solid folks and really rocking and rolling, moving and grooving. But let's go ahead and get down to some news. Okay, friends? So it looks as though South Korea is now rolling out a pilot program. All right, South Korea, which is a very developed nation, South Korea is rolling out a CBDC pilot program. And this pilot program, I think it's going to have legs. There's been pilot programs here and there that have been kind of junky flunky, but I do believe that this one is going to have legs. And I found a great article breaking it down. Let me pull that article up. South Korea CBDC. Can you see me? When the government comes, man, you know we want to flee. Got that cannabis plant. Call it what the damn tree. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Here is the article, my friends. Okay. Bank of Korea. So it's our CBDC watch segment. Bank of Korea to launch CBDC pilot for real world payments. Project Hangang, South Korea to begin central bank issued digital currency experiment in April with 100,000 participants. So this is going to give us an insight into how the CBDCs are going to be rolled out in most jurisdictions, my friend. All right, so let's go ahead and break this down because they actually get into some of the nitty-gritty details. But the article reads, the Bank of Korea will launch a pilot program to test its central bank digital currency in real world transactions from April to June. So it's a limited window here. Central Bank said on March 18th. The pilot program, called Project Hangang, will involve 100,000 participants who can convert their bank deposits into digital tokens. CBDC is a digital currency issued by and regulated by a central bank, unlike virtual currencies that operate on decentralized networks. You see how we got to work that in there, because we've managed to make a big difference in the world with all this good old crypto stuff. Pretty cool and exciting, really excited about all that good stuff there. So let's talk about how this is going to play out. Participants in the pilot program will make payments by scanning a QR code, just like crypto, similar to existing mobile platforms, and Venmo and stuff. But instead of drawing from a traditional bank balance, the payments will be processed through deposit tokens, a digital currency based on CBDC issued by the Bank of Korea. Deposit tokens are converted from cash in a user's bank account, similar to a debit card deducting funds directly from the account. Why are we producing these trials? As the use of physical cash, banknotes, and coins continues to decline and digital transactions become the norm, central banks around the world are exploring ways to modernize fiat currency. There is some truth to that, of course. China and several European countries are advancing CBDC initiatives, while the Bank of Korea began CBDC research in August of 2021. Okay, so yeah, the Bank of International Settlements, of course, is pushing and pursuing much of this. That is an international central bank of sorts that will interlock and interconnect the nation-state banks. They do have a spending limit, what institutions are participating. One thing many people will be familiar with is, of course, 7-Eleven. Cointelegraph is covering that in another article. 7-Eleven, South Korea to accept CBDC payments in national pilot program. Now, I'm not exactly clear on who these 100,000 people are going to be, but I wanted to point something out, because this is how this thing's going to get rolled out. It's going to roll. There's two ways. One, there's like a false flag banking cyber attack blamed on a foreign adversary. And it's like a problem reaction solution paradigm where, oh my God, we got to respond. They're coming after our banking system. The legacy financial system is been shown to be insecure. We have to lock down and use a new platform that will allow us to lock out these foreign adversaries from manipulating our money, just like manipulating our elections, blah, blah, blah. Always a boogeyman. So that's one way that it'll play out. The other way, which is more likely, you see, one thing I realized in my years and years of conspiracy research is when there's something that the predator class wants to impose upon the body politic, the public, you and I, and it's like going to be a hard sell, like invasive pat downs, for example, or giving up your civil liberties and privacy. When that kind of thing's going on, sometimes the government, the predator class, they got to get you to get in a state of fear before they can roll this supposed solution out. But other times, it's not really that necessary, because most of the public won't even bat an eye at the idea of their money system being converted to a central bank digital currency. And the way that they'll really sell it and market it is through convenience. And as we can see with this Cointelegraph article, we can see clearly one of the things they're going to do. The convenience stores, remember, 7-Eleven is going to be part of this South Korea CBDC pilot program. The convenience store chain will reportedly provide a 10% discount on all products. All right, now before we go to our special guest for the program, Mr. Mike Cobb of ECI Development, let me share one more bit of news on the CBDC front. You see, in the United States, the entire game has been changed. Because Trump is in office, the predator class is shifting their strategy away from a government central bank digital currency. Of course, this central bank, the Federal Reserve, is very independent of the government, as we all know, away from a central bank into the private sector issuing these digital currencies that are essentially the same as a central bank digital currency. And that's in the form of stable coins, which is a cryptocurrency issued by a centralized third party that the one unit of stable coin, one tether, one US dollar coin is equal to $1. It functions very much the same. And the big challenge is this is a private company. So people are like, oh, Circle is the company behind USDC, US dollar coin. And of course, Tether has its own company. And a lot of these units, these coins are backed by US treasuries. They're very close and very embedded in the United States legacy financial system. And they're very popular in Latin America as well. So Trump is in favor of these stable coins in part to push and pursue dollar hegemony worldwide and to prop up the dollar. He doesn't want to see the dollar decline under his watch. even though he's participated in its decline by racking up the debt. Still to this day, in spite of some Doge nonsense, smoke screen, smoke and mirrors, dog and pony show the media wants you to pay attention to. But here's the point. The stable coins are going to be de facto central bank digital currencies in the United States. They're centralized, they're surveillable, they're programmable, and they're censorable. And they've been censored by OFAC and different organizations for terror activity, money laundering, you name it. Pretty soon that's going to spread, of course, to you and I for making no comments on social media or whatever. But the question that I would always ask myself is, okay, if stable coins are going to be the CBDC in the US, how do they force us to use them? Because stable coins exist now. And full disclosure, I've used stable coins for decentralized finance. I prefer to use Monero for my payments, but there is a practical use for these stable coins in the cryptocurrency economy. Many people are accepting them on their online stores now as well. So it's a voluntary thing now, but how are they going to push it upon us? Well, of course, there could be that false flag I was telling you about. Banking crisis, the system's no longer working. We got to have an alternative. Oh, how convenient. There's already an alternative system that's fully functional that has been working for many years in place. But then there's also the let's slowly but surely incentivize the public in order to do this. And of course, we see Circle is going to be announcing an initial public offering, which means this is getting hot. Wall Street's on board. It's going to grow. There's going to be new investment. But on top of that, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, very powerful figure in the cryptocurrency space, he's saying Congress should allow stablecoin companies to pay users interest. So there's another benefit, another perk, being able to put your dollars into a stablecoin and collect interest. Now, of course, the big catch, my friends, there's these two bills coming through the House, the Stable Act and the Senate has the Genius Act. And both of these, my friends, this is how the private becomes public. Both of these bills would give total control of these stable coins to the commercial banking system, as well as the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve, the board of directors, the governors for the Federal Reserve would oversee the stable coins. Same kind of deal, absorbing them. And of course, our good friend Aaron Day, his theory is that JP Morgan Chase is going to absorb Circle, which does USDC, or maybe it was Tether. And so the idea is like these are going to merge into a de facto CBDC, either through the central bank or through the commercial banking system. Either way, my friends, it's coming. And as I shared at the top of the show, in large part, it's already here. What are you going to do about it? You got to exit and build. You got to protect your wealth. You got to learn to trade outside of the system. And one key thing that I taught in the CBDC challenge, and I'll use this as a segue to introduce our great guests, you got to know the right people. You got to have tight-knit friends. You got to have people you trust, and you got to start dabbling in alternative forms of investment that aren't as susceptible to this beast system that's being erected all around us. And there's somebody that's been doing this for many, many years now, that is somebody that I look up to, somebody that inspires me as far as the success that he's managed to create. He's not just like some successful, wealthy business mogul guy. He's a cool guy too. We love to hang out with him. So I wanted to bring him on the program. We are doing a webinar on Tuesday, April 8th. I'll tell you more about it, but let's go ahead and introduce our guest today, Mr. Mike Cobb. How are you there, Mike?
Hey, I'm good. You know, you talked about the importance of knowing great people, and I am so glad that I know your wife.
Wait a second. She's a great gal.
She is a great gal, and she married a great guy. So anyway, no, but you know, your point is spot on, man. Like, you have to have the resources, and the resources, sometimes people just automatically think money, and no. Resources are people. It's your network. It's your connection, right? Those are the most important resources. And I feel very honored and blessed to have you in my circle of resources, but more importantly, you know, friends. And we've certainly had some fun together over the years too. So
yeah, we'll talk about some of the thrills that we've gotten into to get thrills in Vegas, but not the crazy kind you may be thinking about, but like really pretty damn crazy.
They're crazy.
We'll save that for a tease. But
all right,
Mike, we've done a lot of work for you in the past, with you in the past, and I wanted you to just introduce yourself to our audience, maybe that isn't familiar with you or your work. just give us a little bit of background on who Mike Cobb is.
Yeah, sure. Back in 1993, I went to Belize on my very first trip, and went back a few months later, bought a condo on Ambergris Key. Actually, a buddy and I, we bought 2 condos. And what we found was that there was no mortgage money. So the developers in San Pedro were dying. I mean, they built all these, condos, and they were trying to sell them to people. We were able to make a full payment, but most people had 20%, 30% down. So we started a little mortgage company to provide mortgages in Belize to North Americans. That was our very first business. It kind of genned up at the end of 93 and into 94 officially, kicked off. And so we were able to take that mortgage company over the next 10 years and really build it up into something pretty big. And in 2003, we got our banking license in Belize. So we've been a bank in Belize now since 2003. So it's at 22 years now. Anyway, and we're still really a mortgage company. We serve folks looking to buy property, but now not just in Belize, all over the region, right? We have loans in Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Honduras, to North Americans looking for, property overseas. So that was our first business. It really got us involved in the region. But then, we started to see that there was a real need in the marketplace for U.S. standard product and U.S. familiar product. And so we started a development company in 1996, ECI Development, to serve North American consumers who wanted a product in then just Belize, but now in all of those countries I just mentioned, wanted a U.S. standard product that was familiar, comfortable, met standards. And so we've been doing that now for 29 years, goodness gracious. And then back in 1999, we planted 100-acre cattle pasture in teak. And we've since planted much more teak. We've got maybe, 400 or 500 acres in teak. I should probably know that number, but 400 or 500 acres in teak plantations of various ages. So we've really been investing in the region on the finance side of things with the banking and mortgages, on the real estate side with the homes, condos, and real estate development, and then also in the teak on the agricultural side of things. You mentioned alternative investments that are really outside the box. And we've focused on those. Our companies have focused on those types of things and then helping folks come in and be a part of it alongside us. So that's the long and the short of it, I guess.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And I want to bring to folks' attention, we are going to be doing this webinar. It's April 8th. We actually we're spinning up a new division, although we've already been doing this over at Live Free Academy, but we're calling it Live Free Prosperity. So the website is livefreeprosperity.com/webinar, livefreeprosperity.com/webinar. It's a free webinar taking place April 8th at 11 a.m. Central. I want to encourage you guys to show up live because there's always special opportunities and gifts that we dole out for those of you that show up live. But if you can't show up live, go ahead and register. Click that button there. You'll get access to the replay for a limited window. And we're going to be talking about this really incredible opportunity in the timber space, timber investment. This is something that's regularly been just only accessible to the ultra wealthy and like funds and pension funds and billionaire moguls. But through Mike's work, he's making it accessible to the little guy, to you and I. But we're not just the little people. We got big dreams, big visions, and we're very conscious of where we put our money. And we want to put our money with somebody that we know and trust. I know and trust Mike, but also opportunities that are more beyond the control of this beast system. So I want to get into timber and teak here more in a sec. But while we have you, let's pick your brain about success philosophy and success strategies. I think that'll be a great benefit for our audience, right? We talk a lot about CBDCs. And one of the things I teach folks, especially if you're dependent on retirement income, especially if Social Security is your sole source of income, but even if you're pulling from the IRA, 401k, whatever, this goes for folks with corporate jobs as well. I'm always telling people, you got to have an alternative income stream because we saw what happened during COVID. A lot of companies, you got to take the shot or we're going to let you go. How egregious. And then we know the Social Security is going to be one of the first things to get converted into strings attached CBDCs. Everything else is going to follow suit on Wall Street, especially. But so I'm talking about, you got to have an alternative income stream. And people are just like, that just sounds overwhelming. I don't want to run a business, entrepreneurship. It just boggles my mind. So let me ask you this. You mentioned that you went down to Belize and you saw an opportunity. Can you just talk about like entrepreneurial thinking and how you can kind of assess a market or a space And from there, where there's a lack or a need, you can fill that need and turn it into a money-making opportunity.
Sure, absolutely. My all-time favorite, I call it a sales quote, but it's really a life philosophy quote. Is by a guy who passed away recently, Zig Ziglar, and his saying, Zig's. I
That's
mean,
a good. I know the quote. It's a good one.
It is a good one. It's the best one. If we help enough other people get what they want, we can have what we want. And what it really does is it right positions our place in the marketplace, right? Our position in the marketplace. We must serve first. If we're taking money from somebody and we're not serving, then we're stealing, right? Or whatever. I mean, but I would say we're stealing. If we're not serving, we're stealing, right? If there's not a voluntary transaction where there's value being passed to a consumer, right? So when we serve, when we identify a need that's either being not served, underserved, or poorly served, right? Because those all three exist, right? In the case of Belize and the mortgages, it was unserved. There was nobody providing mortgages to North Americans because the banks in Belize wouldn't lend to foreigners, and the banks in the U.S. and Canada wouldn't lend on collateral outside the U.S. or Canada, right? So nobody was serving the market. So it was not served. You've also got underserved, where there's more demand than there is services, and then you've got poorly served, right? And so when we can identify one of these three areas, and we can bring either expertise first is great, but if you don't have expertise, I wasn't a mortgage, I was in the computer business, I knew nothing about mortgages, right? I just saw this opportunity, but then because I didn't have the expertise, I enlisted it. I went out and found it. I said, look, here's this incredible need, right? We can serve these consumers with mortgages. We can help the developers sell more property, and everybody wins, right? Everybody wins in that formula. So we found the expertise, we recruited it, we hired it. And so expertise is important, but I think the second most important thing beyond service is energy and creativity, right? We have to bring energy to it. We have to bring intention, full intention, our whole bandwidth. Now, some of us, it would be a part-time job, right? In fact, at the time for me, it was a part-time job, right? Because I was still in the computer business working on this mortgage company. But when I was working on the mortgage company, it got 100% of my bandwidth. It got 100% of my energy, and it got 100% of my intention. So if we can find a need and serve it, we can bring our bandwidth, our energy, and our intention. I think those really boil down to the most important things that we have as human beings that we can bring to this entrepreneurial effort.
Good stuff. You said something that actually came up for me that is something I'm really dialing in for the first time ever. I've always given it platitudes. And that's just being extremely disciplined with what I'm giving my attention to. So I started time blocking. Now, mind you, I was time blocking before, as in I put spaces on my calendar, but I lacked the discipline to actually do what I was telling myself I was going to do. Somebody I look up to and learn a lot from, this guy, Dan Kennedy, sales, marketing, copywriting guy. He really talks about the importance of discipline. And he points out that we're more likely to keep appointments with other people than we are to keep appointments with ourselves. And so you talked about being right.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing. We can let ourselves down all the time, and that atrophies our discipline muscle. But every time we keep that commitment, we're strengthening our discipline muscle, just like waking up and going to the gym, or not picking up your phone right first thing in the morning. Right. And so I've been actually doing it. I'm doing it. Wow. Hooray, for the first time, just really making it happen. So you said, like, it's not that you have to give all of your attention to something, but when you are focused on something, when you're choosing to work on something, give it your attention. So you're seasoned. You've been doing this for a while. Like, was that something you had to cultivate? Do you have any tactics or strategies? Do you still feel tempted to pick up the phone or to check this or that out? And what helps you to stay focused?
Hold on a second.
Accomplish he's a funny guy, that Cobb. To accomplish what you've accomplished, it obviously takes some self-discipline and being able to focus on something. But is that still something you struggle with, or is it just habit now?
Since I've already given my funny, I won't say what I was going to say, which was I was born that way. No way, man. Right. I mean, look, it's practice, not perfection. And it really is practice, right? It's trying to do better all the time, right? To exceed what you've done before. And so I like the word intentionality. I think that, I mean, you at your exit and build conferences have brought on speakers who talk about intentional community, and that word intentional is a powerful word, because what that really means is focus. It is discipline. I think intentionality encompasses a lot of different other adjectives, right? Focus, discipline, bandwidth, right? Consciousness, right? So intentionality is giving all of ourselves to something. And so if we set aside those blocks of time, you know what? We're human. Our minds wander. The monkey mind, it just, it spins, whatever, right? But if we intentionally want to do it better and we make that a goal, right? We set that as a goal. We are going to be intentional and we are going to get better at it. We will find ourselves getting better at it. We'll never be perfect at it, or even close to perfect. But better is always a great thing. And the fact that we're trying to get better at it truly sets us apart from 99% of people who aren't even aware of it, first of all, or if they are aware of it, aren't making the objective to get better at it, right? I mean, I think that's the whole point of meditation. That's the whole point of like Kung Fu and stuff like that, right? It is just the intentionality of that specific action in the moment, the true Zen, being present in the moment with what you're working on. And when we are, we can be highly effective for sure. But what I also find, and this is crazy, I also find that then my subconscious at night delivers ideas or inspirations at some point, maybe not the next day, but I mean, like I get deliveries. Let me just say that I get deliveries from my subconscious. It could be while I'm on my Slack line, or it could be sitting at breakfast eating, or any kind, it doesn't matter. But that kind of focus, that intense focus on one thing, permeates back into the subconscious, which will then, bring things forward when it's ready. There may be ways to extract. I don't know them yet, but anyway, I'm just happy when they bubble up, and I'll take them.
Love that. Yeah. One thing that's been like a breakthrough for me, I was sitting on the porch. This was like 4 days ago. It was over the weekend. I was reading this book, No BS Time Management for Entrepreneurs by Dan Kennedy. And he was talking about discipline. And I had the realization that, like, and exactly as you said, mindfulness really is the key, because you can have all the success habits. And this is something I realized during my first marriage, which didn't go so good, but I got 2 incredible kids out of it. But I realized, like, I'm reading about nonviolent communication and speaking in terms of your feelings and your needs and not putting people down or getting angry. And as I'm reading it, just relaxed reading it on some leisure time, I'm like, I can do this. This is a great idea. Let's make this happen. And then in the moment when there's a fight going on and the kid spills water everywhere, and you're like, you don't even think about the damn book. But I realized that's when mindfulness is really important, to be able to cultivate in the moment as these emotions arise. Stephen Covey, it's the very first habit of highly effective people: be proactive. He talks about this magical space between stimulus and response. And it's in that magical space, if we can tap into it, that we get to decide how to respond. And so I'm sitting on the porch the other day and I'm like, every single moment we have the ability to choose. Are we going to act in accordance with the person we want to be? We truly want to be successful entrepreneur, a dad that shows up and gives attention to his kids when they need it, somebody that's there for their wife or whatever. Tentativeness. We get to choose. Are we going to be that person that's in alignment with who we want to be? Or are we going to make the decision that we've been used to making? That's the simple, easy way out. And it's always in that moment. And I realize, like, now I'm becoming more conscious, and I'm actively thinking to myself, this is one of those moments right now. Go ahead and make the damn decision. Like Rebecca, my lovely wife you mentioned earlier, I've been taking the kiddos to their school program and then coming right to the office, and they got to get up and go super early. And so this was a day 2. My daughter had dance until 9:30. She's got a competition coming up this weekend. 2 weekends ago, she got first place. So kudos to her.
Yeah.
That was her goal too. I was so proud of her. You got dance daughters too.
I got 2 dancing daughters, so I get it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was a big deal for her. And I was so proud of her. But I was going to be, and of course I show up. So she's like, the dance teacher's like, can she stay? It's already, the class is till 9:30. It's like, oh my goodness. I went and got a massage, of course. But Becca, the night before was like, hey, since you're going to be gone all day, you want to do breakfast in the morning, maybe have a slow morning. And my instinct was like, no, I got tons of stuff to do. I usually take the kids, but I thought this is one of those chances. My wife's looking for attention. I want to spend some time. I could use a slower morning instead of just working and go all day. So I made that decision. And when you make those decisions, it starts to reinforce. And then eventually, rather than just doing the status quo thing that's not leading you towards your goals, oftentimes we seek the simple way out, the easy way out. Eventually, you'll become the person that you want to become because you've been making those decisions in the moment.
Right. And the other thing is that stimulus reaction, right? I mean, the pause in the middle, right? When that pause becomes natural to who you are, right? That's a goal. It hasn't happened for me. I still consciously have to kind of pause myself many times, right? Not all the time, but many times. But when that pause and that reflective element can just start to happen naturally almost all the time, your decision making will be far superior. Always. That pause is critically important. Yeah, Covey nailed it on that first habit. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the importance of having options. Right. So one of the things that you guys do with ECI development is help people with this Plan B concept. Can you explain what that really means and why Americans or Canadians especially, should consider maybe having a second residence somewhere or some kind of escape plan if things go crazy, or just a place to go vacation down, on the beach? What is this Plan B thing, and why should people consider second residence?
Well, look, I can really boil it down to just a very simple statement. If you don't have a residency outside your home country, so in the US, that would be a green card. If you don't have a green card in another country besides, US citizens, even US residents, right? But US citizens, US residents, Canadian citizens and residents, people who call Canada and the United States home. If you don't have a residency outside your home country, you are effectively a prisoner of your country. Like, you have no choice. If you don't like what they do, you're stuck. Now, I know everyone says, if I don't like it, I'm just going to leave. Great. Hang on. Get on an airplane. Fly to, I don't care, pick a country. Jamaica, Bermuda, Portugal. Show up with your passport. They welcome you in. They say, hey, I just was in Nicaragua last week. Hang on. Get there. Welcome to Nicaragua. There you go. I now have a tourist stamp. I can stay in Nicaragua 90 days. That's what that stamp right there says. Right? I can leave the United States anytime I want, right? The problem is, unless I have one of these, which I do, should have had all this ready, but I didn't know where the conversation was. Anyway, this is a Nicaraguan residency card. This card right here gives me the legal right to stay in Nicaragua. If all I do is show up with my passport, like, I'm going to leave if stuff hits the fan, I'm out of here. Great. Get your passport out, leave. But 90 days later, whatever they stamp in this passport expires and you have to go home. But what if you don't want to go home? What if you left because you're like, I don't like what's happening here. It's horrible, right? Too bad. You have to go home unless you have one of these. Oops, one of these. Anyway, so why do people need a Plan B? Well, you don't. If you are happy being a prisoner of your own country. If you're happy being a prisoner of your own country with no options, you don't need a Plan B. You don't need a second residency. Don't get one. But if you don't like the idea of being stuck and being in a prison, it's a beautiful prison. By the way, the U.S. is a beautiful prison. I love my prison. Like, I hope I never have to leave. Honestly, I hope I never have to leave. This is the most beautiful prison I can imagine. Canada's pretty nice too, right? But if it becomes a prison that you don't want to be in, you have to have a residency somewhere else to be able to stay there. And so for people who want an option, a Plan B, and it is a Plan B, my Plan A is stay here. Although I lived in Nicaragua, you know that, John. I've been living in Nicaragua for 14 years. And when my wife Carol and I, when we get old, we're going back to Nicaragua because we're not going to a nursing home in the U.S. We're not. We're going to go down to Nicaragua But other countries, Belize, Costa Rica, Panama, I mean, all these countries love their old people. They take care of their old people, real care, right? So we're headed down there. When Carol and I need diapers, we're headed back to Nicaragua for the end of life, because we're going to be cared for wonderfully in that country, right? And many of these countries will do that for you. But my plan A is to stay here for as long as possible. But you know what? You call it the beast system, right? I mean, when this thing gets rolled out and 7-Eleven's giving everyone their 10% discounts and people are signing up and the Social Security people are all on board because they don't have a choice, and all the welfare and SNAP people are on board because they don't have a choice. If all the Social Security and all the welfare and all the VA, I mean, you got to remember, it's not just old people Social Security, it's VA benefits, it's all that stuff. Like, if you put all of those people that are getting some form of government assistance, how about student loans? You can go on a student loan, no problem. You got to pay it back in CBCDC, right? So now all of a sudden, the number of people, the percent of a population that's going to be tied into the system voluntarily, basically, hey, you want your welfare check? Take it as this. Who's going to say no to that, right? So now all of a sudden, maybe half, 2/3 of all the people in the United States are kind of in the system, right? And if we see that happening and things are moving in a direction we don't like and we want to get out, we better have a plan B. We better have a residency outside our home country, or we are prisoners. And I am pretty sure, John, because I've spoken at your conferences over the years, I've met, maybe thousands of your folks at this point, and I can assure you that none of them want to be a prisoner in their country. None of the ones I've met and talked with anyway. So it's a tremendous, tremendous way for people to find liberty. It's a preservation of personal liberty that is just so fundamentally important. I believe I did it. I mean, and I know, hundreds, if not thousands, probably thousands at this point, but certainly hundreds of people who have obtained a second residency purely as a plan B, right? Just as a plan B.
Right on. Yeah. And so one means to this end, because I understand it's not something reserved for the ultra wealthy, but it does take some investment, right? To get the residency. Yeah. Oftentimes you got to invest in the country. So and this isn't the only benefit to this timber opportunity, but it definitely is a big one of the benefits. But
absolutely.
You can invest in Nicaragua, Panama, other areas, and then that can be a means to getting that residency. And again, this is going to be one of the things we're talking about coming up April 8th. April 8th, it's a Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. You can sign up for free at livefreeprosperity.com, livefreeprosperity.com. That's where you'll get access to the free webinar. We'll probably hang out for a couple hours. There'll be plenty of time for question and answer, but you'll get to learn more about how you can invest in a small slice of one of the world's most in-demand timber forests and get an estimated 298% to 1,275% ROI. Like it's ridiculous. And Mike's been in the industry for a long time to actually see these ROIs come to fruition. So really solid opportunity. You got to have a big time preference now. It's a commitment, but we're going to talk about this in depth. It's totally free to sign up, livefreeprosperity.com, livefreeprosperity.com. But why don't you just introduce a bit more about what this opportunity is that we're talking about here in timber teak and what's unique about teak?
Yeah, sure. Well, can I circle back to something you just said about, I think a lot of times people have this idea that, I want a second residency or a second citizenship overseas. Residency and citizenship are very different things. Citizenship's passport, residency's green card, right? And what we're really talking about are residencies. But even so, I mean, some of the residencies around the world run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you want a citizenship, say in Malta, or a lot of the European countries, you're talking, $1 million, 2 million, 3 million euros, right? So to get a citizenship. If you want a residency in a country like Belize, it's a great deal. It's only $250,000, right? But it still really is limited for a lot of the uber wealthy. The nice thing about Panama and Nicaragua is that the amount of investment that you have to make, including all of your legal and government fees to obtain those residencies, $35,000 in Nicaragua, but $22,000 in Panama. So you make an investment in a half acre of teak forest, you get a Panama residency, a permanent residency in Panama, and it's $22,000. And you're right. I mean, your investment is going to kick off about 200. You're going to invest about a little under 22, but $22,000, and you're going to get back over $210,000 when the trees are harvested and turned into lumber, right? And so, but the whole time for that entire time period of the growth and harvest and processing into lumber, you're going to have a plan B. You're going to have a permanent residency in Panama that gives you the right to go there, of course, but stay there for as long as you want. Yeah, you got some cool pictures coming up. This is our plantation that we planted in 1999, the 100-acre cattle pasture. Yeah, these trees are now 25 years old. They will be harvested next year. We just finished our sawmill. In fact, you're going to love this. This is the sawdust from the very first log that we put through our sawmill in January. We took about, 20 folks down to see the sawmill, first log through. Pretty exciting. And that's the sawdust from the first log. But anyway.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool.
That's vertical integration. So another entrepreneurial thing. You saw an opportunity. Maybe it's a pain in the butt to work with other sawmills. Because real quick, though, what's this? Like, I got some pictures here. Why don't you talk us through what is teak? Why is it special? I got trees growing all over our 10 acres, but I don't know if anybody's really interested in buying them. Maybe I could sell it to the barbecue shop down the street, but maybe. Other than that,
especially if it's mesquite. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I know you're in Texas, but like teak, for example, teak has incredibly important properties for the marine industry. It's got a super high oil content, which means that in a marine environment, saltwater environment, or even for outdoor furniture, right? In an outdoor environment, but also a marine environment, the oils protect the wood from rot, fungus, and decay. So teak has been used in boat building for hundreds, maybe probably thousands of years, but certainly hundreds of years since the British started planting teak plantations in India about 375 years ago. Teak products are used in everything from chairs to bath mats to flooring, and very, very expensive. That one. I mean, they're doing hardwood floors in $50 million apartments in New York now, right? Teak hardwood flooring, right? Now it's just got such wonderful properties, and the thing about teak is that it's actually being harvested and cut down from plantations, but also sadly in the wild with massive deforestation to get it. It's being harvested 8 to 10 times faster than anybody is replanting it. And so what we've seen over the last 52 years is the price of teak has gone up about 5.5% a year on average for 52 years. So it's a great track record. But you start to layer in this just reality that teak is being cut down and turned into lumber 8 to 10 times faster than anybody is replanting it. So just imagine just simple economics, supply and demand. Like, what is that going to do to price over the next, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years? We expect, based on the laws of economics, that it will be a real windfall for teak investors. And by the way, you mentioned the long time. I like to address that. I think you said average investors or something earlier. I would beg to differ. I do not believe that anybody listening to this podcast today or coming to your conferences or coming to the webinar are average investors. Your average investor has their money, 60% stocks, whatever, 30% bonds, 10% cash, or whatever their financial planner at Charles Schwab's telling them to do, right? That's your average investor. Anybody watching this podcast, coming to your conferences, you're not an average investor. You are already thinking outside the box. And what is so important to understand about something like teak is it is a 25-year harvest cycle. You plant it. I planted my trees in 1999. We're going to harvest them next year. They'll be 26 years old, right? But you know what? Way back then, right? I remember people laughing at me right across the street, right here. I'm in my home, right across the street at the Rotary meeting at the Bavarian Inn. Like, people would laugh at me. Cobb, are you serious? You missed the meeting last week, the Rotary meeting. You were down in Panama doing what? Like, you were what? You were buying a farm and you were planting teak trees and you're going to have to wait 25 years for the harvest? You're crazy. I'm like, yep, I'm crazy, because I know in 25 years, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this, or I'm not going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this. It's been 25 years. I'm really glad I did this. And I'm glad that over the last 25 years, we've planted another 500 plus acres of teak trees, both in Panama and Nicaragua for the non-average investor, for the investor who says, wait a minute, 25 years, gosh, that's a long time, you know? And in fact, on your slide for the registration, one of the things I loved about it talked about grandkids. The very last word was grandkids. So many of our teak owners bought this for their kids and their grandkids because it's a generational wealth stewardship tool. You get the first harvest, assuming you live for 25 years, you get the first harvest, right? Then the trees are replanted. And in 25 years, your kids can get it. And in 25 years, your grandkids can get it. And in 25 years, your great grandkids get the next harvest. It is cash flow. It's 25-year cash flow. But the most important thing, and the reason that it's being cut down 8 to 10 times faster than anybody's planting it, is because most people go, 25 years, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. My gosh, that's the absolute reason we should all be doing it, because most people aren't going to do it. And so that widening of the supply and demand gap is just going to continue to grow, because most average investors are going to put their money in a stock that they can sell tomorrow and buy a pair of fancy, fancy sunglasses, or, spend their money on whatever they're spending it on, right? No. Smart investors, savvy investors, outside the box investors, they look at something like this. They understand the power of the hurdle. They understand that most people are not going to make a 25-year investment with the thought process for their kids, for their grandkids, for their great grandkids. Most people aren't going to do that. But if we do it, we are in rarefied air, and we have the opportunity to deliver a product in 25 years that's probably, who knows, probably, likely going to be worth a heck of a lot more money, because the supply and demand curve says it will be. But even if it's not, using today's constant dollars with the 5.5% lift, that's it. Just the 52-year average. We say, look, for the next 25 years, it's 5.5% a year. The ROI gets up over 1,000%. But I don't like ROI so much as I like IRR, internal rate of return. The internal rate of return on a teak investment, assuming the 5.5% a year, is about 11.5%. Internal rate of return. There is almost no investment out there that will deliver 11.5% internal rate of return over a 25-year period. But the reason it will do it is because it's a 25-year period. But again, coming all the way back to where we started this, John, for that entire 25 years, you're going to have a residency in Panama. In this specific example, you're going to have a residency in Panama that's your Plan B residency. So it's a great investment, but it's also your liberty. It's also your path to true personal freedom with a Plan B. So I think when you put those two things together, it is a powerful, powerful, dynamic duo.
Good stuff. Yeah, and me and Rebecca are invested in a parcel. We're landowners down in Central America, which is pretty cool too. So we believe in this. We believe in Mike. Got to hang out with him in Vegas. I was teasing earlier about the crazy stuff we did. Why don't you tell him what it is that we were doing down there, Mike?
So one of my favorite things to do, I have two real favorite things to do in Las Vegas, is track cars. Right? Porsches, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, they got these race tracks. You can go rent one and drive it around. And John shows up with an expired driver's license. So I'm picking on you, buddy. I'm picking on you. So we couldn't go drive cars. So we had to go to my second favorite thing, which is flying airplanes. And thank goodness you don't need a driver's license to fly airplanes. So it's called Sky Combat Ace. I'll give them a plug.
I thought we were going to go on an airplane ride over the nice mountains and the terrain and check out the canyons, like just flying. That's not what it was.
No, that's not what it is. It's Sky Combat Ace. You go up with a fighter pilot in a 2-seater plane. They basically do all these tricks, barrel rolls, stalls, just like all kinds of tricks. And they tell you how they're going to do it. They do it. Then you get the stick and the pedals and you get to do the trick. It is unbelievable. Flying your own acrobatics airplane, doing the tricks. Phenomenal. Anyway, loads of fun, man.
Yeah. And I share that because, we're close with Mike. He's not just some random guy coming on the show. He sponsored our conferences. We've hung out. He's going to be at Ryan's wedding. Great guy. So it's cool to do business with people that you trust. And he's also committed to the cause of freedom, alternative currencies, crypto. And it's a great way not only to have that plan B, but also to get more outside the system. And speaking of, the guys at the Rotary Club, one thing Dan Kennedy teaches, who did he get it from? He got it from Earl Nightingale. You're probably familiar with Earl Nightingale. He's old school self-development.
Old school. I mean,
he said, if you don't know.
Huh? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he was a mentor to who?
Oh, a mentor to people like Zig and Tom Hopkins.
Yep.
And right. I mean, he was one of the original philosophers in this space. Yeah.
It was Earl, Zig, Tony Robbins. Yeah. Napoleon Hill was even more old school. Yep. He was saying, like, if you don't know what to do in a given industry or space, here's a good rule of thumb: do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So when it comes to stocks and all that stuff, we got to wrap up here, but I want to do a question. Carol had a question. Yeah, let's do this question real quick. And then
real quick, I have one comment. You brought something really important. You mentioned that we take crypto. So if folks have crypto, we accept crypto. We accept gold. We accept silver. I just want to make that known. So we'll take fiat currency, of course, but we also take crypto and metals in exchange for these teak parcels, residencies, things like that. So sorry, just to clarify, you brought it up. I wanted to confirm that.
And the importance of working with people that are part of our tribe. Mike's got a company, of course, and companies got to, protect the bottom line and the sustainability of a company. But Mike has told me in private and on the last webinar we did, like, if CBDCs are a thing, and if ECI development and the timber opportunity, if they can pay out with Bitcoin or Monero or whatever the heck, then they're going to make sure that they can help us stay outside of that whole world. So that's why it's so cool working with someone. Your financial advisor at the credit union ain't going to do anything like that. Charles Schwab and Merrill Lynch aren't going to do it. Klaus Schwab definitely ain't going to do it.
No.
Yeah, let's go to this question here. And this is a good question, right? And I'm going to give my quick response, and I'd like to hear from you there, Mike. If the deep state is successful in decreasing population substantially, demand will go down. What's the worst case scenario on returns? And I get the need for the green card. So, this kind of thinking, I just want to caution against this kind of thinking, because if the deep state decreases the population, then every investment opportunity is totally screwed. And if we're making our decisions in the present moment based on some potential future doom scenario that may never come, then I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. So I like to just plow forward with, not naive to the world that we live in, but confident that it's either A or B or C or D or E or F. But if I'm looking at a few different choices, and if there's a depopulation or like some massive police state, we're living in communist China and all this capitalist investment stuff doesn't even mean anything, then every single option is going to be affected by that. Just like in a recession, everybody's affected. Everybody's affected by inflation. So it's kind of an equalizer. So if we're contemplating teak versus the stock market versus this, that, or the other, they all are just going to be affected if there's depopulation. But nonetheless, we're 2025 here. This agenda has been underway for quite some time. The agenda was underway when Cobb planted the teak plantation. The agenda is still underway today. But what would you say to that?
Yeah, just a quick supplement. I like your answer. I feel, look, if there's a massive depopulation, it will be massively deflationary, right? I mean, everything is going to fall in value, right? Because there are going to be far less consumers demanding a surplus of products. So it will be economically massively deflationary. The one thing I would say is that, let me go all the way to the end. Your teak investment could be worth nothing, zero, nada, right? But that's an investment. That's the whole point of risk reward in an investment. I mean, things could go swimmingly for the economy and none of that happens. And nobody wants teak in 25 years. Like, that's also a possibility, right? They've figured out lots of ways to create fake teak, or I don't know, whatever, grow it in a lab or something. I don't know, right? I'm just saying, like, investment has inherent risk, and the risk is that your investment goes to zero. That's the worst case scenario, right? So I always like to put that out there. It's just a reality. But in a massively deflationary environment, monetary assets have far less value than real things. Food will continue to be a valuable commodity. Gold probably will be, because of the psychological, presence of gold, right? And something like teak that can be used for practical applications like ships and furniture and other things will probably do better than monetary assets in a massively deflationary environment. But at the end of the day, they could all go to zero.
Yep. And it's also like, what's the risk in doing it? But then you got to weigh that against what's the risk in not doing it? What's the risk in maintaining the status quo? What's the risk in keeping the money in the stock market? So it's always like a cost benefit analysis. This is why I love my audience too. And like working with folks like Mike, because, you get some run of the mill investor guy or some run of the mill opportunity, which we don't put in front of our audience, right? We like to work with, it needs to be in alignment. And a question comes up like, what if the population gets decreased by the deep state? Some run of the mill guy's gonna be like, what the heck kind of question is that?
Can you imagine Charles Schwab on here trying to answer that question?
But it's a great question. That's why I love our audience, because this is stuff that we need to contemplate. But ultimately, what's the cost of inaction is the question I always like to ask myself.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Mike. Well, hey, I'm really looking forward to the webinar. Again, my friends, it's going down Tuesday, April 8th. April 8th. That's right around the corner. You can head over to livefreeprosperity.com. That's livefreeprosperity.com. We're using a platform. There's limited space, so go and register now if you can. If you can't make it live, ideally you can make it live April 8th at 11 a.m. Central. We'll go for a couple hours. We'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. If you can't make it live, you'll get access to the replay. But we'll be rocking and rolling with the one, the only Cabarino to share in depth about this opportunity and how to get onboarded with Mike's team and make this a reality for you. All right.
Looking forward to it. John, thanks, man. Good conversation as always. You do a tremendous service to your listeners and viewers, and I hope they recognize just how fortunate they are to be in your circle. Really.
Right on. I appreciate that, Mike. Mike's going to be up at the Land Summit as well, sponsoring the Land Summit, participating in the summit, giving a little talk. So hopefully you can meet Mike in person if you're coming to the X and Build Land Summit.
Please do. Those are great events. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been yet another Live Free Now show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live free, prosperous, and healthy life. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the show, subscribe to the podcast, livefreenow.show, livefreenow.show. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe right now. The button's probably somewhere around here or here, depending on where I'm looking at. Just poke myself in the eye. All right, we're going off the rails, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. Much love. Stay free out there. Until next time, peace.